Well, my friends, now part 2, why the American ball? Because one subscriber, greetings there to the USA, has wrote me a longer text, and I will answer that and make a part 2 because of course I could tell much more, and because there was interest in words in the video is better than to write. So where we are, watch that. That is a cool place here, you know, my city of Austria, not Germany, I'm in Austria. That is the other country beside of Italy. And now here we have one of the best views to the city when we go up there. I will show you that. That is cool. And then we talk part 2, why the American ball. Watch part 1, the meaning of the USA flag to me as a kid. That is important. In the late 80s, early 90s, when I come with the ball now, it reminds me to the early 90s, you know. But now 1, 2, now watch. 1, 2 and bam! Watch that. That is amazing, or you see to the complete end there is Stonewall Court, one of my favorite courts. And here you don't see that much now, but you see until to the last mountains in there. And yeah, that it is, the weather changes. Today there will come light. So part 2, USA. He wrote me some things and I will answer to you and to all the other people also. Slide down. Yeah. When you come to slide, he wrote me that he is from the northeast, from the USA, almost same age as me, 42. I will be in 2 months 41, you know, born in 1985. And I told the story about the ball, to me what that means with the flag on, the ball which I use now from court to court to court. Cool ball to me, you know, and with the flag on reminds me as a kid. And so other things what were there, he mentioned Baywatch, you know. And of course also here to me, you know, and to many others, as I was growing up in the early to middle 90s, Baywatch was, it was so popular, that was the peak of them all almost, you know. I talk nowadays with younger people and they say, what Baywatch? They reproduced it, you know, but they watched the old series with David Hasselhoff and they said, boy, is that boring. And when you lived there in the early 90s and watched Baywatch, it was mind blowing, as you told me. The 90 guys will know that. And the other thing is, yesterday I've seen a video from a Streetball YouTuber, a Streetballer, you know, who makes also YouTube. And he's from Germany. He's over those mountains, not that far away. And his name is Mr. Mike. If you don't know him, you know, from the USA now, he makes in German videos. And he's maybe the most popular YouTuber. To me, is the most popular here, you know, because he was starting it with the influencer game on YouTube with basketball videos almost before all other people did it, all genres, you know. So he is to me the king of streetball basketball YouTube, because he did it almost when no other one has known what influence game was, you know, how they act in the camera and film, and this he did it, you know. And Streetball always still plays, 1 year I think older than you now. And cool, so support him, Mr. Mike Production, and it's not that far away. Last year I was driving so far, the last mountain what you see between, you will not see it on the GoPro, but I see that small millimeter piece, that is normally Stonewall Court. And then you drive the same route again, and that was the most far away court where I am. And then I was only a few meters from Germany away, and in 30 minutes, 20 minutes I would be at his home court, you know, that close we were last year. That was amazing. And yesterday he made a videos about the 90s, and I couldn't believe what I've seen there, because exactly the same what I made the video, we put it on the same time, and I thought it cannot be the complete same mindset when you were a 90s guy, you know. He also said people from nowadays cannot imagine how that was when before internet was, you had to order from the USA and wait, and when you got this, that was mind-blowing. The MTV, you know, I also have not mentioned that, how that great was the hip-hop from there, because here I think to him, to me and to many others, German hip-hop was we didn't like it. We watched to the US hip-hop, that it was, you know. And so that was almost the same what I said in my video, the same mindset. It was completely on the same day, same time, 90s, you know. That was absolutely amazing. So support him if you like, Mr. Mike Production, very cool, but in German. I make it in English, you know. And yeah, absolutely cool. And so Baywatch, yeah, here, that was mind-blowing. When I remember back, you know, David Hasselhoff was the most seen actor in the world, he was in a Guinness book for that, I think, because of Baywatch and Knight Rider. Before there was Knight Rider. And I was growing up with Knight Rider. It was such a cool thing when you have seen Kid the car and David Hasselhoff, that was maybe the most famous person in the world. To us kids, he was the best, the most famous. That was mind-blowing. Always, that was on Monday, Tuesday. On a Tuesday, I think, from 8:30 to 15 after 8 at night, there was Knight Rider, I think. And I was allowed to watch it. And the whole week I was watching forward to see Kid and David Hasselhoff with the leather jacket on, you know, the black one, no beard, like we look nowadays. You know, that was the style back then. We come to Miami Vice also, Don Johnson, no beard, nothing. That is how I still run today, you know, because that influenced me so much. And when we have seen on holidays a Kid with the lights, that was unbelievable. In Italy or in Spain, you have seen such a car in the early 90s. And so Knight Rider, that was... Still I like it, you know. I have the whole seasons on DVD, but they got damaged now because they are in the flat slims. And then the plastic damages the DVDs, you know. And then Baywatch, that was... When you have seen the beach always in the intro, that was like, in the US they have so many people, you cannot imagine how that life is, you know. USA, they had the skyscrapers in New York, they had Texas and the Road 66, or where you thought, that is chilling and the hot thing. Then you had the beaches, Malibu and such things, California, Venice Beach, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger was there, the most famous beach, Venice Beach. And Baywatch really also here, Hasselhoff, I tell you, was the hero of them all. I know guys they're a little bit older than me, and Hasselhoff came back 2-3 years ago or so, and they went to his concert, and that was to them like, the greatest, because they have seen them again. The feeling from back then. Hasselhoff was, you see now, was in the building there, you know, there we have the Olympic indoor hall, but they was playing a football match. I think England was here, a club, an English club, and they were famous for fighting and drinking, and so we didn't move there, but we wanted to see David Hasselhoff. And Baywatch, that style what they had, you know, the beach, how you watch that. Nowadays people cannot imagine that. That was to me the US, you know. That was And then with Pamela Anderson, you know, when nowadays people don't know what time that was. Pamela Anderson was the hottest, the best woman in the world, you know. Everyone wanted to know that, and you watched exactly for that reason. That was, I really, still when I think on that, I still love to watch it, you know. Now, maybe you have that app in the US, Pluto TV. Pluto TV, there you have a lot of channels, and there is an own Baywatch channel where you can watch now Baywatch the whole day for free, you know. They have advertisement in, but for free. And there are a lot of 90s or 80s series which you have all for free. Al Bundy, the whole day Al Bundy, you know. With Kelly Bundy, Christina Applegate, that was awesome. Yeah, and then also, because you have mentioned Pamela Anderson, you know, that was, when you have seen all that, you know, and the stories, and there was not cut like nowadays. When nowadays film series cut every few seconds, because the people are used to Instagram, TikTok, wish. They cannot watch a long thing anymore, you know. And back then there were long cuts, you know, 5, 10, 15 seconds, and then the next cut came. That was, and you know, you had to wait the whole week that you have seen one series, you know, because they were only one time in a week, and you had a VHS recorder, like Mr. Mike told. I had the same to record it, you know. He made it with MTV, and and with Pamela Anderson there was then a film, Barbed Wire. You will know the film, but the people who don't know that, Barbed Wire, hey, what absolutely 90s film that you have to watch, with her in the main role, Barbed Wire, Pamela Anderson. I still love this film, you know. And then with other films what we had here, this was all America. Ghostbusters, when that came out, Ghostbusters, there was a light now in. Have you seen that? That was not far away. Was I shocked now. Boom, you know, and I'm in the highest position here, so I will not stay that long. And that was amazing, you know. Ghostbusters, really, that was the high production, that the most famous film we always watch. Wow, what is in the US now? What film? Ghostbusters, I tell you, here was boom, big. Batman, when that came out, you hear it now. Batman, you know. And then the most famous film for Christmas, still until today, is Kevin Alone at Home and Kevin Alone at New York with Culkin. I cannot name his name in the right words, but you know the actor. This actor as a kid was the most famous kid here by us, you know. Culkin, I think. Still, you know, Kevin Alone at Home. And then Richie Rich, what he made. We went to the cinemas to watch Richie Rich, and we saw in the US. Hey, that is so amazing, you know. And Beverly Hills Cop, you know, with Eddie Murphy, the sound. Hey, that was to us the US style. Miami Vice, the original, Don Johnson, you know, I get goosebumps. Miami Vice, the sound, the vibes. Also Miami, you had all Miami, California with the Muscle Beach, New York with the skyscrapers, all that stuff, Texas, and hey, that was, I tell you, that was so mind-blowing. Then MTV, you know, we watched MTV. And hip-hop, by me it was the CDs, you know. We went to the shops in the later 90s and I watched out what exists, you know. To me, that was Puff Daddy, you know. Puff Daddy was to me my most lovely one. From the female it was Lil Kim, you know. Biggie and Tupac was a little bit before. There I had no opportunity to have a connection there. But then, you know, also one of my favorites then was Exhibit, you know, came later on. Bone Saxon Harmony, you know, wow, that I loved also, was more soft, but I loved it. Boy, it gets now really hot here. I'll go a little bit to the shadow now. What else was there? DMX, you know, boy, DMX, that was so rough, that was, boy, you have not heard that before here, you know. And so I collected the CDs and played them. Shaquille O'Neal, you know. When was that song? I think he made it in 1993, but here it went popular in 1998 because we had the Magic Hip Hop collection. Here you see its shadow. The Magic Hip Hop collection it was called, I think, and there I got, and there was Shaquille O'Neal rapping. I thought, what? He raps? Wow, that song was so amazing, you know, to me. But now I have to watch out. And yeah, the hip hop was German hip hop, we didn't listen, you know. And also then later in the 90s, Cypress Hill was very popular here. Cypress Hill by skateboarding we listened, you know. And yeah, you mentioned then Kelly Slater, you know. Kelly Slater also here, when you were a skateboarder or roller skater, an extreme sport maker in the 90s. Kelly Slater was even back then the absolute legend, you know. As you told, really, believe me, here by us, Kelly Slater was an absolute legend. I think he was here back then also at Baywatch, and he said, wow, I told my granddad, that is Kelly Slater, that is Kelly Slater, or that it was. Or I watched it later on and then I told him that I cannot say. But wow, that was amazing. Now, you see there is all the bad weather. And yeah, it comes close, you have to be careful, you know. And you also told NBA Jam. I made a own video about it. Also to me, people from nowadays cannot imagine how that was. When NBA Jam came out, was 1994 or in 1995 the tournament edition, the TE edition, which was much better because you had more players, you know. It was the same game almost, a little bit other, but same concept, more players, you know. And NBA Jam, that was mind-blowing. I had it on the Game Boy, you know, the original Game Boy when it came out. I have still it. I made a lot of videos about NBA Jam. I know it was on Sega and on Super Nintendo. I have a documentary, watched it. They made it a few years, I think, ago now. How big that game was. It was one of the biggest games ever in all genres. How much money they made with that game. Very interesting from the makers of the game. If you don't know that, watch that. I link it in the description. And I played that always before I went to school. And my grandmother said, because we changed the location now. I'm sweating, you know. But the lights were coming closer and the camera was overheated, also was shutting down. And you know, at my home court in the 90s, there was a light coming in 10, 15, 20 meters, 25 meters beside of us. And since then, I don't like when lights are in the near, you know. Yeah, and NBA Jam. I saw it the first time, in that words. My grandmother always said, because I played it before I go to school, before I went to school, by breakfast. And no, I said, I have to make 5 more minutes, 5 more. No, you have to go to school. You have to go to school. No, Bill, a little, please. That it was, and that was absolutely cool. But then I have seen it the first time, and that is because USA and Italy. The first time ever in Italy on an arcade machine. And the arcade machine had the best quality of the game, better than the Sega, the Mega Drive or the Super Nintendo. And when you have seen that, to me, I can only tell my feeling. I don't know where it was in Italy, I think in Rimini, maybe, Rimini, I think. And they had the machine there, and I watched the bigger guys. That was a beach street, beside the beach, a shopping street where you can walk without a t-shirt, the Baywatch style, and there I have seen it. And then I could play it. I think there were the joysticks. I played, when I remember back, I think it was, can that be, Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, because the Orlando Magic were my most favorite team behind the Charlotte Hornets, and I think I've played Orlando because I have known the Charlotte Hornets were not that good, so I tried it with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, or was it Horace Grant there? That I cannot remember, but that was so mind-blowing. Then I also saw it in Italy, wow, what they have there, And the same, so watch that documentary, that was so interesting when you see that nowadays, how big that game was, And also in Italy, when we come back to that, because I told USA and nowadays Italy, but also to me there were only those 2 countries. And why? One reason was that, another one, here we never got the caps of the basketball teams. And I wished always a Charlotte Hornets cap. Here you have never seen it, We had one cool shop that was at Anich here, Anich Street, Champion shop, Champion, the company, and that we loved, an own shop, Champion. That was in the early 90s. Why Champion? Because the US Dream Team, we followed it. It is the other thing. We wished USA, the USA has to make the Olympic gold medal. When you didn't live there in that area, you cannot imagine how that was. The first time ever the best players come, and they will show if they are really now, if the NBA is really the best. The people have not known that. It was said, but now you have seen it in reality. And then when Jordan entered in, you have known, if Jordan is there, they will make it. Barcelona 1992, and the 3 coats of them were sponsored by Champion, and that was the reason why we kids love Champion. And where does Champion come from? From New York City. Also Champion Sports, is also from New York City, but other brand, from the basketballs what I have. And that was amazing. And in Italy, we had nowhere basketball caps, and I wished, and one time, because we collected basketball cards, we got here at the cigarette shops, there you could buy the Flair cards later on the upper deck. Flair cards, I have it 1994. And I think in 1993, I said to a school kid from me, with 8 years old, Believe me, I said to him, when I'm in Italy in summer on vacation, because we always move to Italy, I guarantee you I only leave Italy when I have a Charlotte Hornets cap. You could not order it. There was no shop in the whole city or outside where you had this, nothing. Back then, no internet, you had no information, you could walk from one shop to another, there was nothing. They said, no, we don't have it. So, and I moved to Italy, and then in a shopping street beside the beach, they had the Charlotte Hornets cap. That I will always remember, I still have it, And then later on, I always moved there and got the basketball caps, But it was amazing. So Italy was always the cool. Also by football, we wished Italy, That was also, you had the football world champion, which is nowadays also there, but it was in 1994 there in America. And we hoped always for Italy. Italy to us was always the country next to the USA, what we wished for. And the best player back then was Roberto Baggio. That I will also not forget, when he shot the last penalty over against Romario, Brazil, the players Romario and all the others, and Italy. And so Italy had also those things what the US had, to me, not all, that was a bit other, Italy, but they had not that much, but they had a lot of fake things, on the beaches, and that was the thing, what we didn't have. And in Italy, I was often, other stories, San Siro, But there is also a connection. Why? Because later on, I like Kobe Bryant so much, And people, maybe nowadays, a few know it, but Kobe Bryant had a huge connection to Italy, Kobe Bryant was growing up in Italy, in the near of Milano, There is now a documentation out which they filmed nowadays, and I always had posters of Kobe Bryant when Michael Jordan, left then. And Kobe Bryant loved Italy. He spoke Italian language completely, and he had the same favorite football club than I had, the AC Milan. There is the big San Siro football stadium where the World Championship was there in 1990. San Siro, around 80,000 to 85,000 people, and they have two clubs, rival clubs, Inter Milan, and the AC Milan. And the blue ones is Inter, and AC Milan are the red ones. And Kobe Bryant had also the shirt of the AC Milan on. He was a big AC Milan fan, And when he died, they played the whole round in the San Siro stadium, in football stadium. So he was known in Italy, and he was there playing streetball in Milan, That was cool, and he had a big connection there. And so Italy to me, and I was in San Siro in the cabins of the AC Milan, there I was. That was amazing, at Milano Duomo, and on and on and on, But America, also the sitcoms. I mentioned the El Bundy, El Bundy was here the greatest from the sitcoms, But I also loved the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, what I told. But when we come to the detail, Will Smith it was so cool. It wasn't, besides Sylvester Stallone, the main actor of mine, And that was so amazing. And I wanted to collect the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on VHS. You couldn't buy, there were no DVDs, there was nothing out. So we bought the VHS to record it. And I think from Monday to Friday, they had every day one episode, And so I recorded it. I never programmed it. I always did it per live, by button, record, bam, and then finish it. And you had to be quick because you had not that much space on the VHS, 250 minutes. And then when I moved to vacation in summer, then I thought, I have learned my grandmother how she has to do it on the VHS, that she can record it every single day, because I wanted all episodes. And back then you had no information how many there exists. You have only known they play now, and one day, when they have all played, then they start by the first episode again in a few months, Where you could hope that they still run it, that they don't move it from the television. And so it was the only way to know how many episodes there were. Or you could not read it, you had no internet, nothing, And so I collected every single episode on VHS. That was amazing, And there were other sitcoms, as I told you, Alle unter einem Dach, that was called in German, I will write it in English, with Steve Urkel. Wow, that was so cool, I also liked the Bill Cosby show, but that was running here in the 90s, but I think it was made in the 80s, Then there was, there were many, Tony Dancer, Wer ist hier der Boss? With Tony Dancer, that, maybe also 80s, but here it ran a few years later. It became popular by us, A few years later, they started it here. That was the point, And Tony Dancer also, I think his grandparents were Italian, So Tony Dancer I also liked very much. And then there was later on Seven Heaven, I think it was called in English, or eine himmlische Familie, Seven Heaven. But that I also liked, Lucy was the same age as mine, but I thought, wow, if I could go there to school, to college, and she would be there, that would be the American Girls, that was they looked other than here, you know. It was mind blowing. And then Full House, you know. Full House with Jodie Sweetin is the real name, or how was the name in the series, boy? Same age, you know, like me when I watched it, you know. But they, as I told you, here they played it years later for the first time. And yeah, that was also, you know, Jodie Sweetin also great, you know. And there were many other sitcoms which there was later on, but I think it was in the early 2000s with LL Cool J, where he was such a fitness sport guy or so. King of Queens later on, but you know, it was also amazing. All US, you know. And a lot of sitcoms. We all only watched sitcoms. That was the thing back then. Everyone had the main sitcom, and the older ones in the early 90s, they watched Beverly Hills 90210. You know, the original. Wow. There you always watched up. I know that. I was on the bed as a little kid and I watched up, and the grown-up people, they were back then also younger, you know, but to me they were grown up, watched it, and I always thought, boy, when I am grown up, these are the cool guys what you have to watch out for, you know. There was also, and there were so many sitcoms, you know. There were, I cannot name now, or maybe I forget a few. Alf, you know, Alf, wow. Alf was amazing. That I watched so often, but I think also was made in the 80s or early 90s then, you know, so all America, films, sitcoms, all, you know. By skateboarding, there also, you mentioned skateboarding, extreme sports, you did BMX also, you know, Dave Mirra, Matt Hoffman, these were the names which you had known here. You know, Matt Hoffman was here, Dave Mirra was here by us, but I haven't seen them, you know. And yeah, the extreme sports, you know. And I collected in the late 90s the Trans World magazine. Wow. And I really, there was no DVDs in the later 90s here. Skateboarding, not much, you know. VHS I had all videos on VHS. Shorties, Fulfill the Dream, you know. That was mind-blowing. Brandon Turner, Steve Olsen. But I have watched then the magazines, and I can tell you, I have really known America from the buildings because of the VHS video cassettes of skateboarding and the magazines. And you have known the buildings. For example, Philadelphia, I think is your area, the Love Park, that was famous. And when I would have seen a film with that park, Love Park, I have no idea that is in Philadelphia. That is why the skateboarders always got kicked out, you know. And so you have known that, or in Brooklyn, those banks, I think Harold Hunter, New York, you know, all those things. And so you have known all the different cities what I have watched, you know, San Francisco. You had so much, Las Vegas, you know. So different levels, Las Vegas, the casinos, the big fights, you know. Here we have known Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson. I have seen boxing, Evander Holyfield live, you know. I have seen him boxing. But in the 90s, Holyfield and Tyson, everyone has known that. The big fights were in the US. All was there. The concerts, you know, the wrestling shows. Also there I watched MTV, the clips, you know, also from the 80s. I loved the 80s also. And they always played the 80s. And I thought, boah, there was always 1 hour 80s, I think. The name, I don't know how they called it, with Kafka. That was the guy who made the series. Matthias Kafka, I think, but Kafka. And always talked about the 80s, what he has known, the musicians and so. And for example, my mother was a huge Prince fan, Prince USA, you know. My dad was an absolute Elvis fan, USA. He idolized Elvis Presley, had the same style, the same hair, the same looking, made all the same, you know. And my granddad was a Metallica fan, so all USA, you know. And I'm later on also a Prince fan. And yeah, the video clips in the 90s, you know, Limp Bizkit, when they were in the World Trade Center, that was a few months before that happened, you know. I think when they recorded it, with those red cap on, and the Offspring, you know, the cool guy in the car, and these were the things what you all watched, sitcoms, music videos. The pop style, also the hip-hop style, all, you know, sports, extreme sports, all was there, the tennis players, as I told Agassi, Sampras, all, you know, the actors, you know, that was all so great, you know. And yeah, there you could go on and on and on. Yeah, and one thing then, later on there was WCW, that I also loved, you know, with Eric Bischoff, the opposite to the WWF. And here, later in the 90s, I had no opportunity to watch the WWF, the time when The Rock entered in and such things, I think. But I had the opportunity because we had the Deutsche Sportfernsehen, DSF, that was called Germany Sport Television, DSF in German, Deutsche Sportfernsehen. And they always had at night WCW Nitro. And every weekend I could stay up on Saturday longer, you know, I didn't have to go sleep too early, and so I watched until 1, 2 o'clock at night. And that was the time when Booker T when he moved in, that style, wow, that was so amazing. Booker T was there, Scott Steiner from the Steiner Brothers, but then with the blonde short hair, Sting, the Stinger. Wow, Sting was also amazing. Then he had the white face with the baseball thing, you know. The early Sting was with, I had the figures, but WCW, I enjoyed that so much, American style, you know. That was all. And I made a video last year, not this year, or this year, or late last year, I cannot tell you, a winter edition video. And there I tried to copy a few American things. You can watch that. Winter edition 2024, 2025. I will link it. I will write it there and I will link it in the description. I had an American hoodie on, you know, American style, it stays on. I had the Detroit Pistons cap on. I had a gangster thing on. I drove with my bicycle and I had extra playing Kid Rock, American Badass. The same, I don't know what the text is, you know, I never listen to text, so I have no, I don't know what is going on in text in songs, you know. I have no idea. But when I like something and that was American Badass, then I have my own thoughts. And he moved there in the video clip with the machine. And I made the same with the bicycle. You can watch that. I tried to make all that the American style. Hey, that video is one of my most favorite ones from all what I have. And the same I made with the Italian hood. I made an Italian hood video because Italian. But where this is normally also our country. That is a big history. I have known it as Italy, but normally it was my country, now it is Italy. And there I made Italian hood basketball, you know, because people forget history and I put all in there. And one thing also what you have to know, I don't know if you know that, but here, when the war was, you know, the Second World War, who bombed our city? It was the US, you know, the US bombed our city. But I tell you, my grandmother lived there. Because you said something political, you don't want to mention too much political. I also don't want that because people then is not good, you know. I'm not interested in that, and as a kid you never were, you have not known such things. But I can only tell you, when here the World War was, you know, my grandmother has seen the World War, you know, and she has seen in person live, for example, Adolf Hitler, because he moved one time to our city, and as a kid she has seen him, you know, in person when he was driving the cities back then, and then the US made the bombs to our city, you know, and normally you should think now, boy, our city, we people would hate the US because they have bombed us. No, my grandmother then always told me the US soldiers were very nice then, because now the war was over, they had nothing to eat, but the US soldiers gave us, my grandmother, something to eat, and they were very friendly and cool, you know, and so my grandmother also liked the US, and we loved the US, you know, but the background, when, you know, they bombed us, but we still then loved the US, you know, and yeah, that it was, you know, that US always cool. And I think my grandmother then had something with US, with a man, but that I don't know exactly, you know. Yeah, and so there are a lot of things, you know, US, you know, and yeah, to us kids that was phenomenal, you know, and yeah, American Gladiators, watch what I have, now the camera was overheated, but watch the American Gladiators, I have them still on, you know. Boy, you see left Zep and right Nitro, boy. And then Alexa Bliss, you know, all the Americans there. Nicolas Cage when he was young. Billie Eilish, of course, you know. And of course, Sly Stallone has to be in there, you know. Sly Stallone, of course, you know. And Serena Williams, boy, I tell you, tennis. Serena Williams was my favorite player, female player, you know. And I extra went, I didn't go to school. I said, boy, I don't feel good. And then I watched the whole day the Australian Open to see Serena Williams, you know, wow, that was amazing. You see Alexa Bliss, Bianca Belair, and there, Rocky and Rambo, Sly Stallone, boy, Billie Eilish, you know, also US, you know, Billie Eilish, Bruce Lee, Alexa Bliss, amazing, or still. So USA was always so cool to us, you know. And when wrestling was, we always also, after the national anthem, they always sang USA, USA, and we did the same as kids, USA. When the wrestlers were here, USA, that was cool, you know. Yeah, that it was, you know. Very, very cool. Part 2, last part. And then we go on with the chords, you know. But that was cool, you know. And that feeling I have when I see my American ball, because I think back as a child, what now is, I don't know, I've heard a lot of stories. There is a German YouTuber, German from Venice, but he made a cool video from Rihanna when she was at Venice Beach private. Watch that, I will link that also in the descriptions. He filmed the bodyguards. Rihanna was very cool, relaxing, driving away when the sun went down at Venice Beach. And the bodyguards always complained, not film, go away. That was amazing. And he also shows Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, and he also say all is dying, nothing is like back in the days. I had a German hip-hopper who was famous there, who was there with the acts in the 90s. He also said music is dead there from the producing because they have so much costs. Boxing scene is away. You know, there are no many fights anymore. They're all on the other side of the world because of the money. There is all changed, you know, the skateboarding is not US anymore, and you know, there's Japanese and the SLS Street League, you know, from Rob Dyrdek, who made it. All different now, the style, the streetball style does not exist. You had the Gas Macker tournaments, we never heard of them as kids, you know. We had the idolized Streetball Challenge in the 90s, but Gas Macker 50-year anniversary, real streetball, where they put real streetball courts on a parking place and still do it. That is cool, you know, but we never heard of Gas Macker. The owner, Scott McNeil, you know, the first 3-3 streetball ever on real street courts with a size 7 ball, and here we have now streetball 3-3 fever, you know, with a size 6 ball, with bam, 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 bam. That is our own sport, that has nothing to do with my streetball, you know. And Adidas Streetball Challenge was size 7 ball, was cool, there was Kobe Bryant and all those were here, you know. And there was the Adidas Streetball Challenge in the 90s, and now that also all has changed, you know. But yeah, that it was. So very, very cool. We see us next time. Bye and ciao.